Hey there, I'm Lee and I've made over $100,000 flipping used goods on sites like eBay, Poshmark, and Mercari. And in this video, I'm gonna be walking you through everything that you need to know to get started to create your own profitable flipping business. Hey, I'm Lee Meyer and I'm the founder of Listing of Freedom and the Empowered Reseller. And I help clothing resellers make more money without hustling harder. Let's get started. Okay, so I'm so excited that you're here because reselling, or flipping as you might call it, is one of the best and funnest side hustles out there. Plus, it's semi-passive, meaning that you can make money on your schedule. For example, when kids are sleeping or you've got a little bit of free time. This is how I've been able to build a nap time side hustle that brings me in $2,000 a month and more. It's also perfect if you're an introvert or you don't want to be direct marketing and selling things like candles and lotion. So what exactly is reselling? Well, in simple terms, it's buying items at a low price, usually locally, and then turning around and selling them for a higher price, usually online. Now, I'm saying usually because there are all sorts of different ways to make this work, different business models, if you will, but that is the general premise of buying low and selling high. All right, so we're gonna be diving into all the details of where to find things, where to sell them, and what sorts of things to look for big profits. But first, I want to take a second to invite you to my free reseller bootcamp. Each day of bootcamp, I'm sending you valuable lessons to help you get started with your reselling business. You can sign up for reseller bootcamp in the description below this video. All right, the other thing that I'd like to talk about before we get going with how to get started is you might be wondering, is reselling still a thing? Is there room for me? Has it become too crowded? And those are really good questions to be asking. And here's the exciting news. Reselling is not going anywhere. It's here to stay, and more people than ever are buying used items and looking to save money. The Wall Street Journal reports that it's a $51 billion a year industry, and it's set to grow to $1 billion a day over the next few years. What this tells us is the demand for used items is increasing, which means there is still room for you to jump on in. All right, so first up, what do you need to get started with your reselling business? Thankfully, it doesn't take a huge amount of money to get started. There's just a few things that you need. First up, you need a phone. I'm guessing that you can check that one off your list. Next up, you need shipping supplies. Now, shipping can scare a lot of people, but once you get going, it's easier than you think. I'm gonna go ahead and leave a link in the description below this video where you can get shipping supplies, including free supplies from the United States Postal Service. The last thing you're gonna need, but probably the most important, is stuff to sell. Now, the sky is the limit when it comes to what you can sell and what people are buying online, but I'm gonna break down some of the best things here. Now, tech is a huge category, and this can be gaming consoles or games. It could be old phones, tablets, or computers. It could even be smart thermostats or even keyboards. This is a keyboard that I picked up for a couple of bucks and it sold for around $80. And speaking of old tech, this is a portable CD player, AKA a Walkman is what we used to call them, that sold for around $26. Another really great category is collectibles. Now, collectibles can encompass a whole range of items. It could be company promotional materials, such as these mini bike license plates from General Mills that sold for around $70. Vintage Pyrex, like this baking set that I sold for almost $200. This Indiana Jones Bowie knife that sold for $350. This Department 56 Village piece that sold for $115. Or this Woody doll that I sold to an international buyer for $500. But one of my favorite categories to sell in is in used clothing. Why? Because it's easy to find, it's plentiful, and it doesn't usually take a whole lot of money to invest in to turn around and flip these items for big profits. It's also easy to list, easy to store, and easy to ship once the items sell. Now I've got some sales that I want to show you from the clothing category, but first I want to tell you that if you had told me several years ago that I would be able to sell used clothing like these for huge profits and actually go on to make over $100,000 flipping these types of items, and that I could find these items right in my own town, I would have told you that you were crazy. I live in a small town. There's not a lot of sourcing options, and it's easy to look at other people and think, oh, they're just lucky. Oh, they have better things. Oh, they live somewhere else than me. And it's easy to get stuck in that place. I even found myself stuck in that own place of thinking, this could never work for me. But I want to show you these items. These are items that I have found right in my own small town. And again, I could be here all day showing you sales like these, but these are just a couple that I've picked out to show you. First up, I have this sweater that I found. So many resellers that were there that day passed me by on this item. It is a Peruvian Connections, that's the brand, and I listed it a couple days later. It sold for almost $100. Then I sold this Orvis coat on Poshmark for $167. And vintage clothing is one of my favorite niche categories to sell in among the clothing category. And this is a pair of Y2K jeans. They're flare leg, they have lace-ups up the side, and they sold for $90. And this is a vintage Gunny Sacks dress. This is one of my favorite vintage brands to sell. And this dress sold for $100, even with awful pictures. Whoops. But really, there's a ton of stuff that you can sell in the clothing category and clothing related categories, such as shoes and accessories. I've actually compiled brand guides of over 750 different brands that sell for big money. If you're interested in that resource, you can grab it here. I've also got a free brands list for you. You'll find the link in the description below this video, and in it I detail the whole list of brands that I sell on a regular basis, and they're the brands that have led me to making over $100,000 with Reselling. Now you might be wondering where you can get items like these to flip, and there are a whole host of places to be able to source these types of items to sell online for big profit. There's thrift stores and thrift outlets, aka the bins or the Goodwill outlet. There's rummage sales, estate sales, garage and yard sales. There's also Facebook Marketplace, as well as looking for reseller lots on the platforms that you might be selling on, such as eBay, Poshmark, Mercari. You can even get liquidation lots online. But one of the best ways that I like to have new people get started is with items in their own house or items that they could get from their friends and family. This is one of the cheapest ways to get started, but even if you have to shell out some money for some inventory, it shouldn't need to be loads of money. In fact, I got started with just $7. I was able to go and buy just a couple of items, buy a couple of items, and then turn around and sell them for a profit. I then took that profit and went back and invested in more items, and that $7 has since turned into well over $100,000 just from repeating this process again over and over. Now you might be wondering where I get my inventory, and that has changed over the years depending on what my life has looked like at the time, how old my kids are. I've had a fourth baby, and so it has changed a little bit throughout the years, but it's generally been from garage sales as well as thrift stores. I've also since added on a consignment piece to my reselling business that diversifies my income and helps me get really amazing items delivered to me, or that I'm able to pick up from clients. All right, now that you've got things to sell, now that you know kind of what you're looking for with items to flip online, where are you supposed to sell them? Well, there are a whole bunch of different websites, a whole bunch of different apps that you can be selling on. But if you are brand new to this, I would recommend picking just one platform to start with rather than overwhelming yourself. Where you're selling is going to depend on what you're selling, but a good starting point is eBay because that does cover a huge variety of items. You can sell pretty much anything on a platform like eBay. If you go with some of the other smaller platforms, they're usually more category specific, such as Poshmark, that's more geared around clothes. The three main places that I sell on, the three places where I'm making sales, are eBay, Mercari, and Poshmark. But again, I'd recommend picking just one of those rather than overwhelming yourself. All right, so that covers the basics of how to get your flipping business started. And I'm wondering what other questions you might be having about getting going. Go ahead and leave your question in the comment below this video, and I'd love to be able to hear from you and to be able to better serve you on this channel. Thanks so much for watching, and see you soon.